Before we begin our story, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more, and drop a comment with your feedback on our stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts. The void of space stretched infinitely around the battered starship Iron Vulture as it drifted between the ruins of forgotten civilizations. Aboard it, a crew of human outlaws, desperados of the frontier, chased their next big score. Captain Reeve Callahan, a former colonial marshal turned rogue, stood at the command console, cigarette smoldering between his lips. Across from him, Vega Finn, his right hand and resident tech wizard, scrolled through data feeds with an impatient glare. "This is the one, Reeve," Vega said, pointing to the holographic projection of a dying star system. "Sector. Old Dominion war records say there's an unlooted vault on its fourth planet, Cordis Prime. A treasure cache from the war, maybe weapons, maybe tech, maybe something even better." Reeve exhaled a trail of smoke and smirked. "Then we stake our claim before the corpse hounds get a sniff." With a burst of thrusters, the Iron Vulture roared toward its destination. Cordis Prime was a world long abandoned, its sky a swirling green miasma, its land cracked and scorched from orbital bombardments. The crew touched down on the outskirts of a ruined city, their boots kicking up dust that hadn't moved in centuries. "Spread out," Reeve ordered. "Finn, get the vault's location. Dax, keep that rifle ready. I don't like ghost planets." Dax, the team's sniper, nodded and adjusted his long-range blaster. The crew moved swiftly, cutting through the desolate streets toward an enormous obelisk covered in alien runes. "Bingo," Vega whispered, activating a scanner. "Vaults under this structure. Entry point is below." The ground trembled. A low, inhuman growl rumbled from beneath. The first attack came from the shadows. A sinewy shape, twice the size of a man, its limbs grotesquely elongated, lunged at Reeve. He rolled aside, firing his plasma pistol. The creature shrieked as the blast seared through its chitinous flesh. "Vault's got guardians!" Vega shouted, slamming a detonator onto the obelisk's surface. The charge blew a hole in the stone, revealing a hidden passage below. "Move!" Reeve barked, covering his crew as more creatures emerged from the ruins. Dax took down two with precision headshots, while Vega and the others scrambled into the vault's entrance. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay and something older, something unnatural. The chamber was lined with crystalline pods, pulsing with eerie blue light. And in the center, atop a pedestal of alien metal, was a black sphere. "What the hell is that?" Dax muttered. Vega's scanner flickered wildly. "Not a weapon. Not tech either. This thing is alive." Reeve approached, his fingers grazing the surface. The moment he touched it, a whisper filled the chamber, a voice speaking in a language older than humanity itself. "You have awakened the last heart of the Dominion. The war is not over." The walls pulsed with energy, the pods beginning to crack open. "Grab it and run!" Reeve yelled. As Vega secured the sphere in a containment unit, the vault shuddered, collapsing around them. The crew sprinted for the exit, narrowly avoiding the grasp of ancient horrors reawakening from their slumber. Back aboard the Iron Vulture, the black sphere pulsed rhythmically in its containment field. Reeve watched it warily. "We sell it to the highest bidder?" Dax asked. Reeve took another drag of his cigarette, staring into the abyss beyond the viewport. "Or we find out what it really is first." The iron vulture tore through the fabric of hyperspace, its engines humming with a low, steady vibration. The crew sat in uneasy silence in the dimly lit common area, the black sphere's containment unit glowing faintly on the table between them. Its rhythmic pulse seemed to sync with the ship's systems, as if it were alive and aware of its surroundings. Vega studied the artifact's energy signatures. "It's not just alive," she said finally, breaking the silence. "It's sentient. Or at least it was. These energy patterns, they're not random. They're structured. Like a language." "A language?" Mara scoffed. "Great. So we've got a talking rock. What's it saying?" "Thanks for waking me up, now I'm going to eat your brains." Reeve smirked, but his eyes remained serious. "Finn, can you translate it?" Vega shook her head. "Not with what we've got. The Dominion's tech is centuries ahead of ours. If we want answers, we'll need to find someone who knows their stuff. Someone who's dealt with Dominion artifacts before." "The Black Sun," Dax said quietly, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. Reeve's jaw tightened. The Black Sun Syndicate was the last group he wanted to deal with. They were ruthless, power-hungry, and had a long memory when it came to grudges. Reeve had crossed them once before, and it had cost him more than he cared to admit. "We don't have a choice," Vega said. "If this thing is as dangerous as it feels, we need to know what we're dealing with." Reeve stubbed out his cigarette. "Set a course for the Kasari outpost. That's where the Black Sun's been operating lately. But we do this smart. No one breathes a word about the sphere until we know what it's worth." "Understood." The crew nodded, their faces grim. The Kasari outpost was a sprawling, neon-lit hive of scum and villainy. The iron vulture docked in a shadowy corner of the station, its crew slipping into the chaotic streets with practiced ease. Reeve led the way, his long coat billowing behind him, his hand resting on the hilt of his plasma pistol. The Black Sun's den was a seedy bar tucked into the lower levels of the outpost. At a corner table sat Kale, the Black Sun's local enforcer. "Callahan," Kale said. "I heard you were dead." "Rumors of my demise have been greatly exaggerated," Reeve replied. Reeve nodded to Vega, who placed the containment unit on the table. The black sphere pulsed faintly. Kale's fingers twitched as if he wanted to touch it. "What is it?" Kale asked. "That's what we're hoping you can tell us," Reeve said. "But it's not just tech. It's alive. And it's dangerous." Kale's smile widened. "Dangerous is my specialty. I'll take it off your hands." Reeve leaned back. "We're not selling." "Not yet." Kale's smile faltered. "You're playing a dangerous game, Callahan. And I don't like being threatened," Reeve shot back. "We'll share what we find. But until then, the sphere stays with us." Back aboard the Iron Vulture, Vega worked tirelessly to decode the sphere's energy patterns. Then, one night, the sphere began to glow brighter. "It's transmitting something," Vega said, her voice trembling with excitement. "A signal." The ship's alarms blared. The viewport filled with the sight of a massive, ancient warship, a relic of the Dominion. "Brace yourselves," Reeve said. "This is just the beginning." The warship loomed over them, its ancient hull covered in battle scars. Strange, golden energy crackled along its surface. The sphere's pulsing grew frantic, almost as if it was calling to something, perhaps the ship itself. A deep, resonant voice echoed through the iron vulture's comms. "You are in possession of what is ours. Surrender it, and you may yet live." Reeve's grip tightened on his pistol. "I don't like being told what to do." A dozen smaller Dominion ships detached from the warship, encircling the iron vulture like predators closing in on wounded prey. "They're powering weapons," Vega shouted. Reeve took a breath. "Then we fight." Engines roared to life. The iron vulture banked hard as the first plasma bolts rained down. The battle had begun. The iron vulture shuddered violently as plasma blasts erupted around it, the shields barely holding against the Dominion's relentless assault. Inside the cockpit, Captain Reeve Callahan gritted his teeth as he yanked the controls, sending the ship into a sharp dive toward the dense asteroid belt that lay ahead. "We're not gonna make it if we take another hit like that," Vega shouted from the co-pilot's seat, her fingers dancing across the control panel as she rerouted power to the shields. "We don't have a choice," Reeve barked back. "Dax, get to the rear cannons and buy us some breathing room." Dax didn't need to be told twice. He sprinted through the ship's narrow corridors, reaching the gunner's bay just as the enemy fighters closed in. The iron vulture was fast, but the Dominion ships were faster. Their sleek, angular designs allowed them to weave through space like spectral hunters. Come on," Dax muttered as he activated the targeting systems. With a squeeze of the triggers, twin turrets erupted in a hailstorm of energy bolts, striking one of the pursuing ships dead on. It spiraled out of control before exploding into a blinding fireball. "That's one," Dax growled. "Plenty more where that came from." Back in the cargo hold, the black sphere pulsed erratically, its energy signature spiking with every hit the ship took. It was as if it could feel the danger. Suddenly, the pulsing stopped, and then, a voice, ancient and layered with echoes, filled the ship's comms. "You run because you do not understand. You fight because you do not see." Vega's eyes widened. What the hell was that? Reeve barely had time to react before a wave of static washed over the cockpit's instruments. The sphere had hijacked their communications, broadcasting something vast and incomprehensible. The holographic projector flickered to life, displaying a scene from an era long past. They saw it. A world, bathed in golden light. Towers of crystalline structure stretching toward the heavens. And in the skies above, massive fleets, Dominion warships, but pristine, untouched by time. "The Dominion was not always what you know," the voice continued. "We were builders. We were scholars. We were gods in the making. But power corrupts. The image shifted. The golden towers crumbled as war erupted across the planet's surface. Dominion warriors, clad in their now infamous obsidian armor, slaughtered their own kind. Their eyes, once filled with wisdom, burned with something else. Something unnatural. We found it in the void. A mind older than the stars. It whispered promises of unity. Of dominion over all. We listened. We became one mind, one will. We were no longer individuals. We were the Dominion. The vision ended abruptly, leaving the crew in stunned silence. They're a hive mind, Vega whispered. That's why they never stop. Why they never negotiate. They don't think like us anymore. They're just an extension of one will. Reeve clenched his fists. And they want this sphere back because it is the last fragment of what we were before, the voice said. And if they reclaim it, they will become whole again. Stronger. Unstoppable. The ship lurched as another explosion rocked its hull. The Dominion's warship was closing in, its weapons charging for a final, devastating shot. Reeve, we have to jump. Vega shouted. Now. Reeve hesitated. If what the sphere said was true, they were holding the only thing that could undo the Dominion's grip on the galaxy. But if they kept it, the Dominion would never stop hunting them. Never. Set coordinates for the outer rim, he finally ordered. We're getting out of here. The Iron Vulture's engines roared to life as Vega activated the hyperspace drive. The ship tore through the void, leaving the Dominion warship behind. But even as they escaped, Reeve knew the war wasn't over. The Dominion wouldn't stop. Not until they reclaimed what was theirs. And maybe, just maybe, that was the key to stopping them once and for all. The Iron Vulture shot through hyperspace, leaving the Dominion fleet behind, but the tension in the cockpit was far from over. The crew sat in uneasy silence, the weight of their recent discovery pressing down on them like a crushing force. The black sphere, the last remnant of the Dominion's past, rested in its containment field, pulsing with a rhythmic, almost sentient hum. Reeve leaned forward, gripping the edge of the console. So let me get this straight, he muttered, staring at the floating artifact. This thing isn't just some relic. It's a piece of what the Dominion used to be, before they turned into whatever they are now. Vega, still analyzing the data that had flooded their systems, nodded grimly. And they want it back. Not just because it's valuable, but because it could make them whole again. Dax scoffed from his seat near the gunner's station. Yeah, and that sounds like the worst idea in the damn galaxy. Why the hell don't we just chuck it into a black hole and be done with it? The sphere pulsed, and the ancient voice returned, filling the room with its eerie resonance. You misunderstand. Destruction is not salvation. To erase the past is to doom the future. Reeve exhaled sharply. I hate cryptic nonsense. He turned to Vega. Can we even trust what it's telling us? She hesitated, fingers drumming on the console. It hasn't lied to us yet. Dax folded his arms. That doesn't mean it won't. Before the debate could continue, an alert flashed across the navigation panel. They were approaching their destination, an abandoned starbase on the edge of the outer rim, designated Outpost 47. "Looks like we're here," Vega announced. "If anyone's got answers, it'll be in whatever's left of this place." Reeve guided the ship into position, bringing them toward the darkened, derelict station. It was massive, a once thriving hub now reduced to a skeletal ruin floating in the void. Large sections had been blasted apart, the remains of shattered docking bays and broken hull plating drifting aimlessly in zero gravity. "I don't like this," Dax muttered, peering out of the viewport. "This place looks deader than a void rat." "Stay sharp," Reeve said, fastening his blaster to his side. "We're not alone." As if in response, the ship's scanners flickered, picking up faint, distorted energy signatures. Something was still active inside. The boarding ramp hissed as it lowered, allowing Reeve, Vega, and Dax to step onto the station's cold metal floor. The air was thin, stale, filled with the lingering scent of burned circuits and decay. Flickering emergency lights cast long, shifting shadows across the ruined corridors. "Where's the command center?" Reeve asked, keeping his blaster ready. Vega checked her datapad. "Level C, past the central atrium. If there's any surviving records, that's where we'll find them." Moving cautiously, they pushed deeper into the station. The walls bore the scars of battle, scorch marks, melted bulkheads, and the skeletal remains of those who had perished in the last desperate fight for survival. Then they found it, a door that had been forcibly sealed shut, with deep gouges clawed into the metal, as if something had tried to break through from the inside. Dax stepped forward, placing his hand on the marks. Whatever did this, wasn't human. Vega's hands flew over the panel, bypassing the station's decayed security. The door groaned open, revealing a darkened chamber filled with shattered consoles and broken screens. But at the center of the room, still active, was a single, flickering hologram. It was a human. A scientist, her face gaunt and tired, eyes hollow with fear. She stared directly at them, as if she had been waiting for someone, anyone, to find her message. The hologram crackled to life, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you're seeing this, then the Dominion hasn't found this place yet. But they will. And when they do, it'll be too late." She took a shaky breath. "We tried to stop them. We tried to find a way to break their control. The key was always in their past. Before they became a hive mind. Before the void corrupted them." She glanced at something off-screen. "We found something. A way to undo what was done to them. A way to break the connection." The screen glitched. Her voice became frantic. "They know. They know we have it. If they get here first, if they destroy this data, there will be no hope left." The lights flickered violently. A deep, guttural roar echoed through the speakers, and the scientist's face turned white with terror. "No. No, 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 they're already here," the hologram cut out. Silence filled the room. Then Vega whispered the words they were all thinking. What the hell were they running from? A cold wind, impossible in the vacuum of space, seemed to brush against them. And in the darkness beyond the shattered station walls, something moved. The silence after the hologram's final transmission was suffocating. The crew stood frozen, their minds grappling with the enormity of what they'd just heard. The Dominion were not just invaders, they were victims of something far worse, something ancient and far beyond the reach of human comprehension. Reeve's pulse quickened as he slowly lowered his blaster, the weight of the discovery settling into his bones. What did she mean? Dax asked, his voice low and tense. That something was hidden. Something that could undo. Whatever happened to the Dominion? Vega was already scanning the room, fingers flying over her data pad. If there's a way to reverse the Dominion's corruption, it's not here. It's gone. Whatever they were trying to hide, they didn't leave it behind. Reeve's mind was racing. His instincts told him to leave, but something nagged at him, they had to know more. This wasn't just about the sphere anymore. The Dominion, the artifact, the horrifying revelation of what had happened to them, it was all connected. I don't like it, Mara said, her voice echoing from the entrance where she stood, scanning the shadows. This place feels wrong. I can feel eyes on us. Reeve turned to face her. We're leaving. Now. But just as they made their move toward the exit, the entire station shuddered violently, throwing everyone off balance. The walls trembled, and an inhuman, guttural sound, like the roar of a dying beast, ripped through the stillness. The station's power surged as emergency lights flickered on, bathing the room in a sickly red glow. The walls groaned and bent. Something was coming, something far worse than the Dominion. Damn it, they found us. Reeve shouted, turning toward the exit. No, Vega said, eyes wide with realization. It's not the Dominion. It's them. And then, the dark corners of the station stirred. A figure, impossibly tall and skeletal, with bladed limbs and eyes glowing with an ethereal blue light, materialized in the doorway. Its very presence caused the air to distort. The creature's form flickered in and out of existence like a ghost from another dimension. The creatures from the visions, the ones who had shattered the Dominion. Reeve's heart pounded in his chest. This was no longer just a battle for survival, it was the beginning of something far larger than he could ever have imagined. The Iron Vulture had narrowly escaped the Dominion, but now the real threat had arrived. The Devourers were here. We need to get back to the ship, Reeve said, his voice steady but with a hint of urgency. Now. The crew rushed through the corridors of the station, the metallic clank of their boots echoing through the halls as they sprinted for the docking bay. Behind them, the Devourers moved like shadows, their monstrous limbs cutting through the air with terrifying speed. As they reached the docking bay, Reeve's hand hovered over the Iron Vulture's controls, ready to power up the engines. But before he could act, the ship's sensors went wild, flashing red as a new force appeared on their radar. But this time, something was different. Their ships, their massive, ancient warships, were no longer hostile. The black sphere in their possession pulsed with energy, syncing with the Dominion ships as they descended toward the station, their weapons dormant. They're coming to negotiate, Vega whispered. They've been tracking us all along. Not fast enough, Reeve said under his breath. Let's get the hell out of here. The crew scrambled onto the Iron Vulture, and Reeve hit the engines. The ship surged into the void, leaving the decaying station and its terrifying inhabitants behind. But as they jumped to hyperspace, the black sphere's pulse quickened, its rhythmic beat syncing with the stars themselves. The ship's interior began to vibrate as the sphere resonated with some invisible force. "Where are we going?" Dax asked, his eyes locked on the artifact. Reeve stared at the glowing sphere, feeling its influence tugging at his mind. He had no answers, only the feeling that something greater was coming. Something that would change the fate of the entire galaxy. The sphere pulsed one final time, and a voice echoed through the ship's comms, ancient and foreboding. "The time has come. The Devourers are not the end. They are only the beginning." The crew exchanged uncertain glances. They had escaped the Dominion. They had escaped the Devourers. But as the Iron Vulture sped toward the unknown, they realized that their real battle was just beginning. The stars blurred around the Iron Vulture as it tore through hyperspace, a mere thread in the vast cosmic web. Reeve Callahan stood at the helm, his face hard, eyes locked on the viewport. The black sphere rested on the console in front of him, its pulsing glow casting an eerie light over the cockpit. He could feel its pull, its call to him, a weight that gnawed at his very soul. Behind him, the crew was silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Dax was cleaning his rifle, his sharp eyes occasionally glancing at the sphere. Vega was deep in thought, her mind racing to unravel its mysteries. Mara was standing near the entrance, her hand resting on the hilt of her blade, ready for whatever might come. Jax, as always, was quiet, his massive form a silent sentinel by the engine room door. "Reeve," Vega said, breaking the silence. "We're close. I can feel it. Whatever this thing is, it's leading us to something." Reeve nodded. "I know. And I think I'm starting to understand what it wants." The ship lurched suddenly, throwing them all off balance. The warning lights flashed red as the ship's systems screamed in protest. Reeve grabbed the control panel, his fingers flying over the console. "Hold on." Reeve barked. "We're about to drop out of hyperspace." The Iron Vulture shuddered, then slammed into normal space with a violent jolt. The crew stumbled as the ship stabilized, and they all rushed to the viewport. Before them stretched the heart of an ancient system, a shattered world surrounded by wreckage, remnants of battles long past. In the center, a massive, dark energy storm swirled, its core pulsing with an unnatural glow. The storm was surrounded by Dominion warships, their ancient hulls scarred from centuries of decay. But the real shock came when Reeve saw what was at the center of the storm, a massive, black pyramid, floating in the midst of the chaos. "That's where it's leading us," Vega said, her voice trembling with awe. "The source of it all." Reeve's mind raced. If the Dominion had been corrupted by the sphere, if they were now a mindless collective under its influence, then what did that pyramid represent? And more importantly, what would happen if they got close to it? "We're not leaving here until we know what this thing really is," Reeve muttered, determination hardening his resolve. "Reeve," Mara said, her voice low but urgent. "We're not alone." Reeve turned, his heart sinking as he saw the silhouettes of the Devourers, the monstrous entities they had barely escaped before. They were closing in, their massive forms flickering in and out of existence like living shadows. "The Devourers," Dak said, his voice tight with tension. "They've followed us. We can't fight them off forever," Jax grunted, gripping a heavy blaster. "We need to find a way to destroy the pyramid, or whatever's at its core." Reeve turned back to the controls, his eyes narrowing in focus. "There's no turning back now." The Iron Vulture rocketed toward the storm, the Dominion fleet and the Devourer's monstrous forces closing in from all sides. Energy blasts flew past them, missing by inches as the crew fought for their lives. "Vega!" Reeve shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Get us to that pyramid." Vega's hands flew over the controls, rerouting power to the engines. "I'm doing my best, Reeve. But the energy field around it, it's too strong. We'll never make it in one piece." The ship lurched again as another blast hit them, the shields flaring up just in time to absorb the impact. But the Iron Vulture was slowing down. "Get the cannons firing." Reeve barked at Dax, who didn't hesitate. The twin turrets erupted, sending bolts of energy streaking through the darkness, but the Dominion ships were swarming, their formations unyielding. "We're out of time," Vega cried. "We need to make a choice. The pyramid, its energy signature is tied to the sphere. If we can get close enough, we might be able to destroy both at the same time. But it'll be dangerous." "That's our only shot," Reeve said, his voice grim. As the Iron Vulture drew closer to the pyramid, a strange, guttural roar shook the ship. The Devourers were closing in, their bladed limbs crashing against the hull, trying to breach the ship. "This is it," Reeve said, his heart pounding. "Hold tight." The ship's systems groaned as Vega pushed the engines to their limits. The Iron Vulture plunged into the heart of the energy storm, shields flickering dangerously as the pyramid loomed closer. Reeve could feel the pull of the sphere growing stronger. Its rhythmic pulse was now in sync with the storm. The Devourers were right behind them, and the Dominion fleet was hot on their tail. The air inside the ship crackled with tension as the crew held their breath, waiting for the final moment. "Now!" Reeve shouted. Vega slammed her hands onto the control panel, and the ship shot forward, slamming directly into the energy field of the pyramid. Everything went white. Reeve awoke to the sound of the Iron Vulture's systems beeping. He groaned, lifting himself off the floor. His body was sore, his head spinning. Slowly, he looked around. The ship was in one piece, but barely. The damage was immense, the hull cracked and scorched. But the storm outside had vanished, leaving only a swirling void of darkness. "Is everyone okay?" Reeve asked, his voice weak but determined. Vega was the first to answer, her face pale but resolute. "We made it, Reeve. The sphere. It's gone. The pyramid, it's collapsed. Whatever the Dominion and the Devourers were after, they've lost it." Dax stepped forward, his rifle slung over his shoulder. "We did it. We stopped them." Reeve's heart was heavy as he looked out the viewport. The battle was over, but something gnawed at him. There was no victory without loss. The galaxy might have been saved from the Dominion's reign, and the Devourers might have been repelled, but the cost was immense. The black sphere, the pyramid, the terrible truth about the Dominion, all of it was gone, lost to the void. And still, a whisper lingered in the back of Reeve's mind. The Devourers are not the end. They are only the beginning. Reeve shook his head, but the voice echoed in his thoughts. He turned to the crew, his expression darkening. This fight isn't over. The galaxy might be safe, for now. But there are things out there we don't understand. And they're coming. He glanced at the horizon, the stars flickering quietly beyond the viewport. Get us ready. We're not done yet.